and that's just to avoid any background noise. We do love hearing dogs and children. It does bring it to life, but that just stops any interference that we might have. You can either put a star in the chat box if you want to ask a question, and we can come to you, or feel free to type it in, or raise your hand, whichever is easiest, and we'll make sure we come to you, and you can ask the questions. If you want to ask as we go, that's fine, but there will be a chance for questions at the end as well. If you agree with something that's being said, feel free to pop a plus in the chat bar or any comments. What might be nice at the moment, we just thought just to take a chance to introduce yourself, to say hello by typing in where you're from in the chat bar, and that'll just give everyone a bit of context of where you're coming from. Maybe also mention if you're on your way with your YPI journey this year, or if you're yet to start. That would be fantastic. So what we've got on today is I'm going to give a brief overview. We are delighted, however, to be joined by Jenny Snell from Youth Links Scotland, Abby Lang and Sian Gillen, who are I Will ambassadors. And they are going to just reflect on their journeys, because I think it's really important to hear from young people how they've got to where they got to. So Abby and Sian are obviously advocates involved in youth activism, involved with using their voice to make a difference, and getting a bit of an insight of how they got there, what supported them to get to that point in their journey, what helped them through school, and what might have empowered them a bit more to get there formally, through the school environment and informally as well. And that's just going to give them an opportunity to reflect on their experience. Then we're going to move into the section just focusing, well, what does that mean for your YPI programme? How can you support a greater lasting impact from the programme, empowering students to continue to use their voice? I think you'll all be aware that we don't want YPI to be this solo project that lasts 12 weeks and that nothing comes of it. We want there to be a legacy in terms of youth voice, youth empowerment, skills development, and how as a school can you support that to the best effect. And then there'll be an opportunity just to reflect on what you might want to do with what you've heard today, how you might want to take that forward in terms of developing your YPI programme. Now, you all will have, I'd forwarded on the paper that we've just released. So it's a paper focused on the power of active citizenship education. And it was an opportunity to reflect on how vital active citizenships are within the curriculum, within the school context. We feel that they are a vital platform for young people to explore what they're passionate about, what are their drivers, but then also developing skills along the way. And where we see, or arguably research is showing, these are most effective when they are authentic and there's links to real world context. So there is the opportunity for young people to be engaging in the real world. The research, you'll see in the paper, the research does seem to show that that active piece, that active engagement with the community, is the hardest bit to facilitate within a school environment sometimes. And that's where programs like YPI can come in to support that, to provide a framework to allow that active engagement with communities. There also, when there is student-led elements, that can be really vital. So for young people to become active citizens, they really want to explore what they're passionate about, what they believe in, what's important to them. And we'll hear from that from Abby and Sian, where they've got to on their journey, and it has to be something that young people, there's a personal connection to, and how can schools provide the opportunity for young people that space to reflect on their values, to reflect on what they care about, and to reflect on how they can make a difference. So along with those real world authentic experiences, it's about that experiential component as well. So it has to have, you know, more benefits when it is experiential, but also when that links to the curriculum. And I think that's for both teachers and for students to understand what impact that is then having on them as individuals, as learners. So that's where YPI, you can kind of see the synergies between YPI and active citizenship education. And I've just pulled out some of our sort of statistics around teacher reflections. So this is based on 122 teacher responses. So it's a reasonably large pool of teacher responses. But in terms of what YPI is doing in the school environment, 98% agreed that students know more about their local communities as a result of YPI. 97% that felt that students can better identify and understand social issues, and that's about making those connections to what do I care about, what matters to me as an individual. 96 believe that students are more empathetic as a result of the experience, and 90% believe that they care more about their communities and want to find out about social issues as a result of YPI. And I think that only feels more relevant in the current context of COVID. We are all feeling a bit more connected to our communities. We are all reflecting on the impact of COVID on social issues, on people we know, on our communities, and on the charities that sit within those communities as well. And the most prominent social issues that were coming through last year, which I think is really interesting, is mental health, health and food poverty. And I think the mental health agenda feels very, very relevant at the moment as we are all challenged, as we were talking about at the start of this session. You know, young people are going through exactly what we are as well. It's a global pandemic. We're all navigating our way through that, and mental health is coming to the fore. So I just wanted to provide that kind of initial context of links of where YPI links with that active citizenship agenda. We're quite unique in Scotland in that active citizenship or citizenship education is identified as a capacity rather than something that a subject area is responsible for. So it means that we've all got a responsibility to offer these opportunities for young people within the curriculum. And what I want to move on now to is to, Jenny's going to, Snell from Youth Link Scotland is going to talk a bit about the What I Will campaign, and then by hearing from Abby and Sian, they're going to reflect on, as a school and their experience at school, what might have empowered them to better engage or to enhance their engagement with community. And I think we can take a lot of learning from that. So I'm keen to hear from them, and that will set us up for hopefully some really good discussion as we move forward. But what we believe at the Wood Foundation is that young people have to be empowered to understand what's happening in their communities and realising their potential to contribute to society. And I think opportunities like YPI provide that framework. I'm interested to explore how we can better support you with that legacy and impact. So I'm going to hand over to Jenny Snell now, who's going to give you an introduction to I Will, if you're not familiar with it, and then we'll move on to Abby and Sian. Thanks, Jenny.
Hi, everyone. Oh, have I got an echo there? Is that coming through? Is it okay?
It's sounding okay on my end. Yeah.
All right, okay, must just be my end. Hi everyone, so I've introduced myself in the chat, but hello again, my name's Jenny Snell and I work for Youth Link Scotland, which is the national youth work agency in Scotland. So we support the youth work sector, both kind of voluntary youth work organisations and the local authority youth work organisations as well. And the projects that I lead on predominantly is the I Will movement. And it's really great to be here today, so just wanted to say thank you to Lindsay and to the rest of the team at YPI for having us along, and hopefully share some of our kind of social action and youth volunteering kind of knowledge and kind of inspiration with you. So just moving on to what I Will kind of movement is. So it's a UK-wide movement that started in 2013. In England, so it was started by His Royal Highness Prince Charles to increase the number of opportunities for young people to take part in youth social action and youth volunteering. And then in 2016 it came to Scotland, and we kind of have since then built our own identity of what I Will is and what I Will means in a Scottish content, and we're really delighted to have the YPI team as kind of really strong partners in our I Will journey as well. And what we mean when we kind of speak about youth social action is an activity or something that a young person does that they do within their free time that makes a difference to others, their community, wider society, or the environment. So this can include lots of different things. So I've already mentioned kind of youth volunteering, it could be mentoring, it could be befriending, it could be fundraising, campaigning, youth voice, activism, active citizenship. That all kind of falls under the banner of youth social action. And what we aim to do, what our vision is in Scotland, is to create a culture where all young people can participate in youth social action and can feel enabled and empowered to take action and make a difference and influence change regardless of their personal kind of situation or their background. So we have key outcomes focusing on increasing the opportunities for young people from kind of lower income backgrounds, and also increasing the opportunities from young people from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds as well. And really just to create a society that kind of works for young people to be able to make that difference and to take action and have their voice heard on issues that impact them both now and in the future. And when we're speaking about creating a society as well, it's one thing that we try not to keep it narrow to just a youth work programme, but actually work across sector with lots of different partners. So we work with the youth work sector really closely, but we also work within formal education, so with schools and colleges. We work in the voluntary sector, the environment sector, we work with businesses and corporates, and also health and social care. So we're trying to really build a movement across society that recognises the difference that young people are making. And we've recently launched, we've recently built a new strategic plan that was shaped very much by I Will ambassadors, and Abby and Sian were really involved in that kind of process as well. And that strategic plan for the next 5 years is going to launch next week in I Will Week, which I'll speak about a little bit later on. But yeah, it's really exciting. We've got a whole kind of new 5-year plan coming up that we'll give you a kind of sneak peek into today. So one of the elements of that strategic plan is growth through partnerships. So we want to really enhance our partnerships with people across society to really enable more opportunities for young people to take social action. And one of the models that we're going to use to do that is our new Power of Youth Charter. So our new Power of Youth Charter was launched a couple of weeks ago, and it's a kind of call to action to organisations to sign up and make a public commitment to how they can increase the social action opportunities for young people. And it's based on our 5 principles of youth social action. So we want to see more organisations prioritising empowering young people to volunteer and take social action. We would like to see them open up their decision-making structure, so offering them the chance to have a voice and to really meaningfully influence the decisions that are made within an organisation. We want to kind of see more partnership working, both with young people and with other organisations, and also evidence the benefits of youth social action. So how are you kind of measuring the difference that it's making, both to the young people and to your organisation and to wider society? So it's kind of that triple benefit of youth social action kind of model there. And then finally, recognise and celebrate young people's impact as well. So showing that young people are making a difference and recognising that. If you could move this slide, Lindsay. So this is our kind of Power of Youth Charter here, and we've got a call to action out just now. So we're looking for kind of new schools and organisations. So even if you're not with a school, to kind of sign up, that would be fantastic. And you can find out more information on the I Will page on the YouthLink Scotland website. And we can also probably ping out some links to you after this webinar as well. If you could move to the next slide. Lindsay, thank you. The final thing I want to mention just before I pass on to the I Will ambassadors is I Will Week. So next week is our kind of our celebration week that we have annually every year. And it runs from the 16th to the 22nd of November, and it's an opportunity to really shout about the difference that young people are making across Scotland and across the UK. So there's a number of events happening in Scotland on the 17th and the 18th of November. And one of those is youth social action in education. So we have kind of amazing partners coming along to speak about the difference that youth social action can make in education, but there's a whole heap of other events happening as well that we would love to see people at. And we also take to social media that week as well. So leaders and organisations from across society kind of take to social channels and really shout about the difference that young people are making. So it'd be great to see some of you involved. And yeah, our new social media channels have also launched as well. So that was just a little shout out to kind of follow us on our new social media channels. So we have a new Twitter and Instagram account, which Sian is actually taking over our Instagram account today as well. But that is enough from me. I've spoken far too much already. So I'm going to pass back to Lindsay, or pass over to
That's fine. Yeah. So thank you, Jenny. That was really insightful just to get that introduction. So we're now going to hand over to Abby, who's just going to share a bit about her journey. Yeah, great. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hello, my name is Abby. I am an IWIL ambassador and I am a youth activist for a national charity called Cardiac Risk in the Young, which is known as CRY. As a bit of background, CRY is a charity which is aiming to reduce the number of young people dying from undiagnosed heart conditions. And they're doing this through raising awareness of the issue through research, and they provide a screening service for young people between the ages of 14 and 35. So my journey into campaigning and active citizenship began in June 2017. So I've been at this for about 3.5 years now. And I was just finishing my 5th year at Harris Academy in Dundee. And I was looking for a topic to base my Scottish Baccalaureate in Science project on, because I decided that I was going to do that in 6th year. And I was inspired after I went to a CRY screening, which was actually being held at my school, and then went on to base my project on whether Scotland should have a national strategy to prevent young sudden cardiac death. So over the course of my baccalaureate research phase, which was throughout my 6th year, I met with the Scottish Health Minister, lots of politicians, cardiologists. I went down to Glasgow to oversee Scottish Football Association heart screenings. I organised 2 fundraisers for CRY, but the main thing was that I began a national social media campaign to recruit MPs to sign up to CRY's MP Pledge, which is basically to get them to show their support for a national strategy to prevent young sudden cardiac death. And I think I got over 60, and that was including 50 out of 59 Scottish MPs. So that achievement in itself was really the main one that led me to be invited to deliver the Time for Reflection speech at the Scottish Parliament on the subject of young sudden cardiac death and CRY, which was really an invaluable platform just to raise awareness of the charity and its work. So by the time I'd finished 6th year, I kind of realised this was something that I was very personally attached to, and I developed a passion for basically making a difference, and knew that this was something I was going to continue to campaign for regardless of whether my baccalaureate had finished or not. So I've been doing that since then, and the impact of me being given a voice and a platform has led to me achieving different things. I was a finalist in the Young Scot Awards 2018 Health and Wellbeing category. CRY themselves invited me down to London to speak at their annual parliamentary reception at the House of Commons. I spoke last year at the YPI national event, which is fantastic. And last year I was also made one of 50 UK IWIL ambassadors for the IWIL campaign, which in itself has opened so many doors for me. I got to record a podcast with the BBC about my campaign and through that as well. So it's kind of like a cascade effect. So there's obviously been lots of different success factors which have allowed me to get to this point. So what I've done is just summarised the main points and divided them into those which my school really helped me with, and some things that I could have maybe needed a little bit more support with. So the things that I definitely got through my school, first thing was freedom, and that was through the baccalaureate itself. And obviously I appreciate not everybody getting involved with active citizenship is going to be through a baccalaureate, but I think that the template of it is really great for engaging young people because it really encourages individuality. I'd already had my first meeting before I chose the topic, and I was really encouraged to think outside of the box and not just to go with the norm. And in terms of where I wanted my project to go, I was told there's no limits and we're really here to support you no matter what. And that was really important for me because I felt supported and I was more engaged with the whole process, knowing that I was in control and that I really could do anything that I wanted to do. Second thing was my school it continues to be absolutely fantastic at advertising events that are being held within the school building, but out with the school hours. And pupils are really encouraged to go and do that. And I think that that's really beneficial to inform pupils about what's happening within their local community, just to give them a bigger picture of society and what's really happening in their local areas and some current issues around that. Because if I hadn't known about the CRY screenings at my school, I really don't know where I would be right now. So next thing I think is the most important for me is opportunities for public speaking. And I think that even though there's more emphasis within the school curriculum now, I still don't feel that there is enough for such a vital skill. Because unless you're exposed at a really early age, I think it kind of manifests itself into like a genuine fear of getting up and speaking in front of people, and I think that's such a shame, and it shouldn't be like that. So thankfully my school was really great. They allowed me to present my research at school assemblies, and they have a really good relationship with their feeder primary school, so I actually got to go into primary schools as well and educate younger children about cry. So that was fantastic. Next thing was the support system I had was amazing. There is a group of staff within my school that they have a specific interest in supporting pupils who are doing fundraising or campaigning, and so I had like a certain group of people that I knew I could go and speak to, but I also had one specific member of staff who I checked in with every month just for like a 5 or 10 minute meeting, which was really beneficial for me, just to have that one person and to discuss any issues that I had, and just to kind of tell them about my progress and where I was at. And the last thing is that my school is very Twitter active, so I had really a lot of support through social media, and for my generation in particular, because it's such a big part of our lives, I think it's a really great platform to actually engage with your pupils. And I felt as though, you know, my school and the community was really interested in the work that I was doing, which in turn boosted my self-confidence and really encouraged me to keep going. So that was fantastic. Some of the things that I would have benefited more to if I got more support with was how to actually deal with charities and people like politicians, and this could be through communicating through like writing emails or letters, or actually meeting them in person, because I think for young people it's quite daunting to make the first move and actually meet with people who are regarded as like important when you're so young. So I would have benefited from maybe some upskilling in writing, you know, professional and concise correspondence, and also bringing it back to public speaking, how to actually sit down with somebody and sell yourself within like 1 minute, because a lot of the people that I met with had a very busy schedule and I only had a short period of time with them. So just getting that across quickly and concisely is a skill that I would have maybe benefited to learn a bit earlier on. A second thing is how to deal with the press. This can be through like actually gaining the coverage in the first place, or supporting young people when they have gained that, because it's very easy to be taken advantage of if you're doing it by yourself at a young age. So maybe having a member of staff aware of what's going on and ready to step in if there are any issues would be really beneficial. Third thing was funding. There were some aspects of my campaigning that I needed to be paid for, and I wasn't aware of any organisations or funds that could help. I had to go and do my own research and discovered that there was actually something called a Dundee Youth Fund, which helped me pay for costs for sending letters out to MPs. But if I had known that through my school, that would have been fantastic. And the last thing is organisation and time management, which I think something which is quite overlooked. And regardless of whether pupils are in, you know, years that are sitting exams, they're still going to have a lot going on in their life, and it can be easy to, you know, feel overwhelmed or unmotivated basically to get involved with extracurricular things. So I think that for me, I knew I had the time to do everything. I just needed a bit of advice on how to do it basically. So yeah, my key messages would be to just encourage pupils to be ambitious and to be proactive, to actually seek opportunities for themselves, to reassure them that they are capable of doing everything that they want to within the time that they have, and also just to provide them with some strategies which will enable them to achieve their goals. So yeah, I think that's everything from me. So I'll pass you back to Lindsay.
Thank you, Abby. That is so insightful. That is fascinating. What a fascinating journey. And there's going to be the opportunity to kind of step in and ask Sian and Abby some questions at the end as well. But I think for the moment, I'm struggling to see the chat, so I'm just going to make sure. There we go. Okay, so I'll make sure there's no questions, but there will be lots of time at the end to kind of pick up on that. So I think if we move on to Sian now, if that's okay, Sian, to share a bit about your journey now as well.
Hi, so my name's Sian Gullen and I'm an I Will ambassador as well. I've been involved with the campaign since 2016, so around about the time we started really getting involved with it in Scotland more. but I've been involved in social action since I was about 10, basically volunteering with guide units and helping out at care homes and things there. But my first project I got involved in was in 2013, which is the first photo on that slide, which was a local heritage project that was actually organised by my school, but through out with the school hours, which was really interesting and really fun, and it got me involved in Saltire Awards, which then led me to going on to join the committee who organised the ceremonies for our Saltire Inspire Awards programme in the Scottish Borders, which was, I think it was the third year of the awards I joined the group and took part in that. And at that point, I wasn't the most confident person. I went along to my first meeting and I think I said about 2 words the whole meeting. And then I actually went on to be elected as an MSYP through the confidence I got from that role and the support from the youth workers there. And then, as you can see, I was willing to speak in front of all the members of the Scottish Youth Parliament, and was elected into the UK Youth Parliament and able to attend a sitting in the House of Commons, which was very, like, if you told me that when I did that first project that in the space of 2 years I'd be going to the House of Commons, I would have laughed in your face and told you were making it up. But then I went on to do more work after leaving the Youth Parliament. I think I've got some photos on the next slide of that. Yeah, so actually I spoke at parliamentary committees as convener of one of the committees in the Youth Parliament. So I spoke on transport and climate change at 2 different events. I think that photos from the climate change event. And I went on to be involved in the Year of Young People, where I took part in the Scotward project and led sessions with young people and trying to submit their word for the project that was put in the torchlight procession. So there was a word that was spelt out. I think the word in the end was bra. I can't remember off the top of my head now. It was that was in 2018. And then at the same time, for the Year of Young People, I went to Berlin to the opening of the Scottish Government Innovation Hub with some young people who were also Year of Young People ambassadors, and that was a really exciting experience for me to get to go abroad and take part in something quite international, not just national. That was quite exciting. I also took part in the Youth CIP, which was the Youth Volunteering Innovation Project, which you might have heard quite a bit about. I know the Wood Foundation came and spoke to us when we were taking part in that, and we were making recommendations on how to improve youth volunteering in Scotland. And then from that, I've done a few more things. So I think the next slide has, sorry, I'm using these photos to remember everything I've done because I've done quite a few things in the last few years. So I take part in street law. So I'm a law student myself, and street law is work in schools with young people to teach them about learning about law. And I take part in that through the Law Society of Scotland. I'm also, I was on the sport and physical activity team at my university, and I'm now Vice President of Sport at the Student Union. I spoke in at the I Will event last year with another I Will ambassador about everything we've done and getting involved in social action. And I'm also now a trustee of my student union, which is something, if you told me when I started out on this that I'd end up at this stage, I definitely wouldn't have believed you. But I think for me, a lot of my support came from youth workers rather than school itself. I think that's also something really important, is to make sure that if you're doing a project with young people in your school, sometimes the support can be connecting them to further opportunities so they can continue on getting involved. So if you can't continue on the project because you don't have the resources or the young person's leaving school, there are other ways you can get involved, which I think is really important to remember. My school were very supportive of me taking part in these things, but they weren't the most supportive at the start. It wasn't till I started to do well and tell them, oh, I'm going to the Parliament to talk, they would be like, oh, that's great, yeah, you can miss that class for this. But when it started off as just little meetings with counsellors and things, they were kind of a bit more wary and saying, it's your exam year, but not realising that a lot of this stuff is actually what's helped me get into university. It's probably the experience I've got from that are probably more important than some of the things I learned in the classroom, and I think that's something that needs to be remembered as well. I'm someone, I don't do particularly well in written exams as much, but if you get me to speak up and give a presentation now, I get mostly A's in presentation modules at my university, so I pick them deliberately to get better grades. But I do find that when I'm doing essay-based subjects, I can do well in them, but I do find it easier just to stand up and be able to explain my point rather than having to write it all down. And I think that's something that gets forgotten about, and some learners just learn differently. And using like active citizenship and supporting young people through that, it really helps them learn. that what their strengths are and give them the confidence in that, because I think sometimes it's forgotten about and we do focus on academics too much. But I do feel that I was supported to find further opportunities, which was something that really helped me get to where I am now. And that's pretty much all I've got to say on my points there.
Thank you, Sian. That's really, really useful, really valuable. What I'm going to do now is actually I'm going to stop sharing the slides, just because I can't actually see you all when I am sharing them, and it's nicer to see your faces than slides. So there we go, that's better. So what I wanted to do now was kind of take what we've heard from Sian and Abby about what were the success factors that enabled them to continue to go on and continue on their social activism journey, and have a think about what that means for YPI and how you can encourage that legacy out of the YPI programme into social action, into encouraging young people to volunteer, to use their voice, and how critical that is. I think there was some amazing insights there, girls, so I just really, really appreciate you sharing. I think, you know, the being ambitious for the young people, giving them the sort of backing and the encouragement to continue on that journey, and also connecting them with the opportunities that are there is really, really crucial. So I think that was really insightful. So what I wanted to ask and kind of put it out to the forum now was just to have a think about how you can empower a legacy out of your YPI journey. Ian, is it okay to pick on you in your previous sort of context, talk a bit about the peak and how that YPI linked to volunteering in that sense? Would that be okay to share just a bit of insight there?
Aye, of course, yeah.
Picking on you.
That's fine. So my previous role, I'm currently with Children's Neighbourhood Scotland as part of Glasgow University, but my previous role I was with a Peak project in the East End of North East of Glasgow, and I had worked quite extensively actually with YPI in various capacities, but I think for us as the former us as an organisation, where YPI's legacy was really important, it was, although there was a financial benefit attached to that, that was secondary to what else was attached, because what happened with us was we were put in contact with young people who were looking to be more socially active, more socially mobile, who were wanting to be involved in something but just didn't know what was there and what was available. And so through those connections, in particular Govan High School and Bannerman High School, in my previous role I was a volunteer coordinator, so we, I think off the top of my head, took on between 8 and 10, I can't remember exactly, of the young people became volunteers with us. So within that programme they were gaining further experience, but also we put them through recognised awards and accreditation, so they were increasing employability prospects and stuff as well. But equally in their volunteering, the amount of hours that was covered by the young people was phenomenal. As a living wage employer, I had sat and worked out what that would have been at living wage as employees, and the sort of in-kind contribution to the local community was phenomenal. And those links were only made via YPI. Also with the YPI, there was also a lot of links made. I think we focused a lot on the schools and the young people who had Peak as a successful charity, so we were in receipt of the money. But also it's important to recognise the connections that are made with the ones that are unsuccessful. Obviously the young people reached out to the charities, and actually we made connections and had volunteers from people who chose Peak as their chosen charity who weren't successful in the school programme. However, those links still existed. Actually one of them went on, someone had spoke about the Saltire Awards. One of them had picked by Peak for the YPI project in third year, and just the tail end of last year were given the Summit Award via Saltire for the volunteering contribution with us at Peak, and has now just started as a sessional employee while they go into further education. So that's somebody there who's increased awards, dedication, has nationally recognised awards, and now employment purely for engaging with YPI, and actually was with an engagement that wasn't even the winner within their school group. So I think for me, and that's why I'm here today, I think it's just a really important way of building community ties and getting young people to know what's in their area. There are so many charities and third sector organisations working in most areas, and people just aren't aware of them. The organisations are busy, and the young people have other things in their mind. So the fact that it creates those links and that lasting legacy for me is phenomenal, and it's something that I'll always champion, which is why I'm here, just to keep my finger on the pulse and see what's going on and make sure I'm giving relevant information for whoever I'm talking about to. So
thank you,
yeah.
Ian. Sorry, I put you on the spot there. So
No, that's all right.
opening up to kind of you guys then. So what having heard Abby, having heard Ian, having heard Sian, is there any thoughts evolving on how you continue to support your young people going forward? Does anyone link to Saltire, for example, or does anyone, what is the current legacy sort of out of the programme that you've observed through it? Stuart, did you? Yeah, Stuart, that's great, thanks.
We linked to, or I've been trying to before lockdown, with the religion, beliefs and values unit. There's a values and action section that can be done. Now it's easy enough. I'm an RE teacher, so we were doing the first part of it in class on a topic of their choosing. So it was like a belief, something like euthanasia or capital punishment, something like that, and then what a religious and non-religious viewpoint would be on that. And then they had to do for part two is do something in the community. And now it doesn't have to be related to the first part, and we were trying to use, their participation in YPI as a way to accredit it afterwards. Even kids that obviously didn't get to the final or maybe struggled a bit to do the presentations and whatnot, we put them through for, or are trying to put them through for this religion, beliefs and values, and it accredits. They get SQA points at the end of it. Obviously we do it with second year, so it takes a bit of time. We plan to keep it on a spreadsheet until later on in the school, but that's something that can be done. It's a bit of reflection after it, and I know the focus isn't on academics as such, but it's one way in which we're trying to keep the legacy going into another piece of work.
I think, that's a really valid point, Stuart, because I think it is, and maybe that comes back to something Abby said about that kind of recognition of the work that the student's doing, and by accrediting that kind of provides that opportunity for recognition. We do have our strategic guide, which has got sort of examples of other accreditation routes. Jonathan, were you wanting to kind of pick up anything there?
It was kind of I'm not sure if it's a question, it's perhaps an observation off the back of kind of what Abby and CN described, because I think there was two different school experiences that were highlighted there, and that brings me on to the thought about the parity of esteem that exists in terms of one school to the next, where youth voice sits in terms of importance, pace up the agenda. And I suppose there's an open question there to Abby and CN in terms of what we can do to support the increased esteem that youth voice has within a school. But I'm equally opening up to that to the teachers who are on the call as well, because I think certainly in our experience at the Wood Foundation, we see the schools where that's a headline feature of what they do in terms of ethos and culture and curriculum. And then there's other schools where the activity that takes prominence is attainment and accreditation. So there's a question there that it'd be interesting to hear if anyone has any thoughts on that and what we do about it. I'm certain somebody's got like a thought emerging.
For myself, Jonathan, and I know I'm not coming from the school context, but it is touching on something that was said earlier on about the presentation skills. And I think when looking at the YPI presentations, for a lot of them, that's their first time in that sort of context and having that sort of experience. And I don't know if there's maybe some sort of, I don't know if it would be too much of an undertaking, but maybe some sort of thing which follows a similar model, but can be focused on the curriculum so that experience isn't a new experience, but maybe over, I would say, like over the first couple of years, start to build those experiences as part of the work they're doing as part of the curriculum, so that actually it is enhancing the experience of being able to do those presentations and do that in front of classes, in front of groups, but actually relevant to the work that they're currently doing in the curriculum. So then when the time it comes to something like YPI, where it is having real impactful things out with the school context, that actually people are more confident in the process. And because a lot of them, I worked with young people in the groups, as you know, trying to devise their presentations and stuff. And for a lot of them, it wasn't even the content of the presentation, it was the standing up and doing it, and how to put that together, and how to formulate a presentation itself. So for me, I'm hearing that from the girls there, that actually that's something that's not touched upon. I think that's something that when you come into real life, you need to start speaking in public quite a lot. So that, for me, that should be a focus, I think. So,
yeah.
Still something I'm working on myself, to be fair. But again, if I'd had more experience when I was younger, then maybe that would be different.
And I think there's something about that where YPI then sits in that progressive framework, and thinking about where it sits in the school curriculum and how you can build a route out of it. And that might be building a route into the volunteering, or it might be thinking about just the skills journey that the young people are going on. So YPI doesn't feel like this distinct, disparate, project, but it's actually embedded in a wider focus of work, and that the young people understand that progressive journey. And I was part of a HMIE partner meeting with the school, and the feedback there was lots of great little bits going on across the school, and that was really fantastic. But the teachers and the young people weren't making the connections of how each stage they were building up a bank of experience or a bank of skills, and they were kind of struggling to articulate that. And that was the feedback that was kind of given. So it's kind of where YPI sits in that progressive framework, both from a social action point of view, skills development point of view, and where it feeds into other curricular areas. Yvonne, you mentioned Aileen, yeah.
Sorry, it's just when you're discussing their skills and the presentation skills in particular, it was something that we as teachers, certainly at Strongest Academy, regularly said, whatever skills they learn in the English department seem to not cross the door. If you learn it in English, that's what it is. It's an English skill. They seem to ignore it. So approximately 3 years ago, we went back to something which had been done in the school probably 15 years previous, which was a suspension of the timetable for a day. I would like it to be a little bit further, but I'm just a class teacher, I don't make these decisions. But we suspend the timetable for one day, and teachers from different departments get involved with the third years, and we do a public speaking event for the day, and we take them from the very beginning. This is how to introduce your topic, this is how to write your speech, this is how to present, and we talk about body language. Now, that does not necessarily always translate to the YPI final, but we try to make sure that they've got an understanding that this is not a skill from English or history or RME or just for YPI, because when you're interviewed, you have to present yourself. At the end of the day, it is a basic skill. And many of the pupils do participate well, some not so much. They're third years, they've already got very preset ideas about what presentation is and whether they like or dislike doing it. But I can only count maybe on one hand over the last 3 years how many have taken away nothing from that day, and that's out of 3 years worth of pupils going through. So it's been an interesting time. The dog's about to bark because I hear my partner come in. So I'm just waiting for a bark to start. But that's the way we look at it. I would like to do it maybe over 2 days. I have no idea how it'll work this year, because we have obviously COVID restrictions and mixing classes and so on. So we'll work something out. Don't know what, but we'll work something out and do the same thing. But I saw a difference in some pupils. They gave some who said they would never stand up, then went on to present at a final and win. So it's been quite useful, certainly from our point of view, just focusing on the skills there.
I think there's something there as well that Abby kind of links into all of that around also how young people then engage with external stakeholders, and that engaging with partners out with the school, and how you can support them to be empowered to do that. And that is about this confidence for public speaking, the confidence to present themselves. I think that's where YPI can be really valuable. And I suppose just interested to understand what other opportunities then follow on to engage with partners, external partners in the schools, you know, whether that's through DYW or
we're hoping, certainly the hope was this year to work more with Brian at VAO, that's Voluntary Action Orkney. But at the moment he's not been in school yet, so we're still kind of feeling our way and trying to work it out, because we do have quite a good history at Stromness for volunteering, and a lot of people go through Solitaire Awards long before YPI existed. They were doing it, so it's, you know, it's something that you would like them to get the credit for, certainly, and I was hoping to get more of them through the Solitaire this year, but we'll see. We'll take it a week at a time and hope for the best. I think that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, this year is definitely unique circumstances that sits around the programme this year. Yes, Ian, hi.
One of the things I've done, and I don't know how the school programme sits because it's not my area of expertise, but I'd worked in a high school in Glasgow on their wider participation, so with 5th and 6th years, and essentially replicated the sort of YPI model with a group which came to be known Community Champions. But just when you're talking about engaging with partners and stuff, what we essentially done at that point was invite as many charities as possible. So we've done a sort of a poll to see where like the common interests were, and we were inviting partners in just to do guest speaking slots and come in and talk a bit about their organisation, what they were doing, and that was purely to strengthen ties with the community and the 5th and 6th years who were going to be going back out. But what we found is actually that strengthened the relationship with the partners in the school, and we found then that there are now projects where some of those partners were brought in or coming in to work in the school in other aspects. And some of the feedback for us was that actually it was good to see the school was a very set context, and then when we talk about this public speaking and stuff, we come out of that. So we come out of school into a different world. I think maybe even the senior school, but following on from YPI would be maybe interesting to try and break down those barriers by introducing other things, other organisations and other partners that are in the community. Because even talking about public speaking, but engaging in general, young people engage in a very certain way in school, one with staff and one with peers. But actually, you all know yourself, the dynamic completely changes when you bring any partner in. And I think that's an important sort of relationship to start establishing as well. So I think for us, it was definitely beneficial and directly followed on from the YPI stuff that we've done at Govan High. And actually it's the same group who had moved on like a year or two. By that point, we're in 5th year. So we would sort of try to keep that running, and it was very, very successful.
The other thing that kind of struck me through Sian and Abby's input was the capacity for them to reflect on what their personal interests were and how important that was to be then supported throughout the school. So mechanisms for kind of shaping, whether that is engaging formally in curricular activities in that way, or if it's looking at wider enrichment activity. So I don't really have an answer, but I just kind of put it out there as a kind of general thought on what is in place in schools to allow young people to kind of think about their personal drivers, their personal motives, and the things that they are interested in. Because I know through YPI, that's when we see the engagement really ramp up, when the young people are leading their learning and driving forward things that they are passionate about.
We do our YPI half through English and half through guidance. So we have like house tutor, where the kids will do the work with their guidance teacher. So they get this sort of opportunity there to think about that wider skills sort of thing and what they're getting from it and what they've learned from it. I haven't actually observed what the things they do in YPI in guidance to like build up to that, but I know that's part of it. So I think it's a really cool thing that we are across those sort of two different areas. It's not just an English thing. It's if they do it in house tutor, it's supposed to be a whole school sort of skills thing.
Absolutely, and I think you kind of raise an interesting point there about the wider school understanding of YPI and what's going on, and that can be really valuable, because often when I've done launches in the past, and say it's being delivered through PSE and I'm doing PSE and I'm doing a launch, if an English teacher happens to be in the room, I've often had an English teacher come up at the end and say, oh, that's happening in our school, that's fantastic. Well, I could be thinking about national literacy, presentation skills. I need to want to make those links there. So I think increasing the awareness of kind of opportunities like YPI and where they fit in the curriculum kind of supports that capacity to look interdisciplinary, or if not interdisciplinary, at least cross-curricular. Do others deliver in a sort of cross-curricular fashion at the moment? Yvonne, I know you said you were looking at bringing drama in for that sort of presentation. Is there any other kind of, remind me of what your delivery model currently is?
Well, we've been speaking to the English department to see about if there are any kind of literacy awards and accreditation and stuff they can get. So we're kind of starting to look into that. And for drama, it was more just as we were saying about making sure that the kids have got the confidence to kind of go up and do their presentation. And we have a brilliant drama department who I remember speaking to last year. We just didn't go into that bit to kind of say, right, how would you be happy to just actually get them doing the presentations and practicing the presentations, and as you're saying there as well about the English links and stuff as well, about saying, well, you already do presentations here and here, it's just the same kind of thing, and making sure that the kids are aware of those links so that then they can kind of do joined up thinking and then just practice with their drama teachers of how to look and how to do the kind of thing that they're good at and they kind of know a bit more about as well. It's through RMPS that we do it. So just as you say, just trying to focus on what other bits can we pull in and try to make it a bit more kind of interdisciplinary and things as well.
I'm conscious of time, and I just wanted to kind of finish out. I realise we've got Abby and Sian here, and I just wondered if anyone had sort of final thoughts that they want to kind of ask them about their journeys and ask them about, you know, is there anything that you as a school are keen to understand from a young person's point of view would have supported their journey more? Any questions you're keen to pick up?
I guess the only real question I've got is every year we have kids that say, like, I wish I'd put in more effort, or I wish I'd realised how cool an opportunity this was earlier in the process. And I'm wondering, is there anything that we can do as adults to communicate that better, or is it just something you learn as you go? I don't know if there's an answer to that question. Sorry, girls.
No, it's okay. I think for me, my experience is, well, I'm 20 now, so I don't know whether I'm classed as a young person or not anymore. But when I was back in school, when I started off, oh, I'm getting some nods. Okay, I am. As a young person, I take my inspiration from young people, and I think when you're speaking about those schools who maybe have academia higher in their priority list than active citizenship and extracurricular things, that there must be one example out of all the pupils in their school of somebody doing something. And I think that it is sometimes a cascade effect, and if you take that one person and you encourage them to maybe present to other young people, I think that's how you get the message across best. And it's kind of like a win-win situation, because then that individual will further their skills of presentation, and then they're also inspiring other young people their age. So I think for me it's actually listening to stories of people my age who've gone and done it, and that's what really gets across to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much the same. I mean, for me, when I went into the Scottish Youth Parliament, I went for that role because the person in the role before me spoke about it and spoke about how good it was at an event I was at, and that made me think, I want to get involved in that. I want to see what I can do with it. And I didn't do the exact same things as she did. I did completely different things, but I knew what I was going into and the opportunities I could get from it. So I think sometimes having another young person tell you that this is actually really good makes you listen, whereas when a teacher tells you, you just think, oh, they're just saying it because they want me to do it. They want me to do my schoolwork. So if you make it seem like a fun opportunity to get involved in and show how much fun even the years before had, it can really make a difference to that one person to see what an opportunity they're being given and actually take it from there.
That's really great insight. Alex, have you got?
Yeah, just quickly wanted to ask a question to each of you around any mentors that you've had in your time. I know that you've reflected really well on the kind of things and the structures that were in place to allow you to sort of have your voice and develop all the great work that you've done. But did either of you, or have either of you had particular people in your lives that have supported your journey, and what would you, is that something that you'd recommend to other young people around you know, utilising their network and mentors and role models? What's your views on that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of bringing it back to being aware of local charities. I joined forces with a local charity run by a guy called Peter McAvoy, and he was a CRY campaigner as well. He also happened to be Tayside Regional Coordinator for YPI, and so it was kind of just not just researching your charities, but actually getting involved with them and really working with them. And longer just than a year or whatever. He passed away in 2018, so August, so that's 2 years ago now. But no, just somebody with shared experience, maybe somebody that's a bit older than you as well, who kind of knows how things run. But no, he was kind of my mentor. So I know I would recommend, that's what I was saying, I really benefited from having one member of staff in school who I could go to and kind of speak about things, just to kind of touch base with. So yeah.
I think that was a really interesting model, actually, Abby, having that kind of assigned mentor, and you know, just that's something that really I picked up on. Sian.
So I found that for me, I guess not specifically mentors, but I really think that my involvement through youth workers who had involvement in the school really helped. So we had CLD workers in our school, and we had people from the council who worked in CLD, and I think it makes a big difference to have those people outside of the school to speak to about things. So it can sometimes be you're doing all this work with a youth group and you're getting a bit stressed, but you can't really speak to your school teachers about it because they'll just say, just focus on your schoolwork. And sometimes it's just having someone out there that you can sort of get that advice from and get the sort of guidance from, as well as still take part in everything. So I think it's really good to have an outside person from your school as well, but also who's involved with the school and understands how the school runs. So I think something that like schools can really utilise is like CLD and youth workers as someone who you usually tend to be on a first name basis with them, so it doesn't feel as formal than talking to your teacher about it, and it just feels a little bit more informal talking about things, even when it's something really important.
Really great insight. And final point, I think we'll come to Jonathan, and then I'm really conscious of your time, everyone. So Jonathan.
I mean, it's just to say, I think Sian and Abby, like what you have done feels really exceptional. And so like, I mean, huge credit to what you've both done. But what I'm also taking from you, and I always like to leave these things with a bit of takeaway, is that you don't believe that the two of you are an exception, that there's no reason why we could not have a whole sway of individuals such as you coming out of our school system through our youth work system. But it's really about how we cultivate the opportunities and the partnerships and the right people in the room at the right times to support and springboard those opportunities. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely.
Jenny's just shared something. Thanks, Jenny, for that as well. Just so, do you want to just quickly just give it?
Absolutely. So yeah, one of the kind of priorities and programmes that we run at YouthLink as well, through my colleague Marielle, is the Youth Work in Schools Collaborative, and she is very focused on building partnerships between schools and youth work organisations and helping to bring the kind of two sectors together and offer kind of support and strategies to do that. So there's lots of kind of guidance on our website already, but the Youth Work in Schools Collaborative is a kind of a collective meeting that people can join, and if you don't already have youth workers or CLD workers in your school, it's a really good starting point to kind of make that connection and start that journey. I used to do youth work in schools before I came to YouthLink, so I'm a big advocate of that as well.
Thank you, Jenny, that's great. Well, I think we'll probably need to wrap up there, just to allow everyone to kind of get on with their evenings. I'm sure the tea needs to be cooked, cleaning needs to be done, or just feet need to be put up. But I just wanted to just thank you so much for engaging in the session. As I mentioned at the start, we're recording it because we had quite a few last minute people who couldn't attend, so this is a great way that we will be sharing this. because I think Abby, Sian, and Jenny, your insights have been completely fascinating, inspiring, and is leaving me certainly feeling really uplifted tonight and hopeful, which is all what we need at the moment. What I would just ask is, if you don't mind, if everyone has just a couple of minutes just to hop on to Menti, just to provide us with a bit of feedback. This is our first themed webinar where we're trying to work with partners to deliver on important themes. Obviously this one is youth voice and social activism. We're looking at other ones around partnerships, values-based leadership. So we're just trying to understand, is this the right format? Is this the right time? Is this the right platform? What was useful, but what could be better? So if you're all right, just to hop onto Menti and just, it's all anonymous, and just pop in some feedback. We really, really value that as we're going forward. And a final just reminder that the Power of Youth Festival is on next week, and Jenny has got a fantastic lineup of webinars ongoing there as well. So I would encourage you to take a look. What we'll do is we can share, we'll be sharing on social media, but we can also share those links to how you can sign up and see what's happening next week. I'll share those in an email post event as well. But just really, really delighted to have you all. Thank you very much for joining us. And any questions, you know where we are, you've got our contact details. But thank you again, Jenny, Sian and Abby. It was really insightful.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.